Thanks very much. So like I said, we're Jaramer Legal. I'm principal lawyer, Brian Bero. I've been introduced. This is Kayleen Hunter. Kayleen's a Nyul woman from up near Broome there. And she's one of our senior solicitors as well for Jaramer Legal. And she's been kind of the driving force as well behind some of the Aboriginal data sovereignty framework work that we're doing at the moment, which I'll explain shortly. Just a little bit about our law firm. We're established in 2018, so we've been going for about 5 years now. We're a joint venture with Norton Rose Fulbright. Norton Rose Fulbright has a minority stake in our firm, and they're a global number 5 law firm. So we're the first national Indigenous law firm, and we work on corporate and commercial work, as my background previously stated. And we've been partnering with the Indigenous Data Network and Koya collaboration as well, who I'm sure you people may be familiar with, working in this area to deliver the Aboriginal Data Sovereignty Framework for the Department of Jobs, Skills, Industry and Regions. We provide services to government, corporations as businesses, as previously said. We're also the first Indigenous law firm to be put on the Victorian Government Legal Services Panel. So that's a really great achievement for us. And hence we've been given this work through a tender process to then conduct some research, some consultation, draft a report, and then look at developing a framework for DJ Sir to then apply to various other departments as well and use within their department, obviously, as well. So an important part of our service is that we're, as an Indigenous business, we have great lived experience as well. All of our principals and members of our law firm have lived experience. I think this is a really important aspect as well when you look at how you work with communities and government as well to walk together. So our firm is about walking together with government and communities as opposed to working against one or the other. Some say that reconciliation is dead, but I think it's sort of taken a different form now in terms of, from my perspective anyway, in terms of how do we work this stuff out and how do we walk together going forward. So I think there's kind of important aspects to consider when we're looking at developing this framework as well. I mean, obviously the best interest from our perspective, and we have a vested interest as well as an Indigenous organisation to protect Indigenous data as well. So that's really important and an aspect as well that we need to push within the framework and the development of that. There's a couple of examples, some of the work that we're doing. So we're working with some communities around renewable energy development. Obviously this framework, Indigenous data sovereignty, and just some procurement sort of work as well. We're looking to empower communities through commercial activities. And obviously data is an important aspect of that as well, and how that is used and shared within government, but also used within communities. A little bit about the framework itself and how we're engaged. So in November 2023, we went through a tender process, and that tender process, we were up against some other organisations like PwC, etc., and we won the work. And obviously now we're going through that consultation process with communities, and through this process, we will draft a report on our methodologies, consultations, and information gathered into and develop this framework. So we've been fortunate to draw on the skills and expertise of Levi Murray there, who is obviously known to you people and really learned in this particular area, but also Dr. Sky Trudgett as well from Koya Collaboration. Dr. Sky has also worked on a PhD on this subject. So we've got some great people in this area to assist us as well in working through developing this framework, as well as a consultation process, which I'll discuss soon. So we're currently midway through the project, and we're expected to hand over the final report by the end of May. So it's kind of watch this space. I'm able to speak a little bit on some of those aspects. Obviously, we've been contracted by DJ Sir As far as sharing information and consultation process, I'll talk a little bit about some of the findings, but like I said, we're midway through that and we're still kind of analysing that data. So the final report will set out the guiding principles for IDS and a robust framework as well for a robust governance framework as well through the findings in that research and consultations. And we'll look at the practical aspects as well of implementing that for the Victorian government. So I'll go into more detail on those aspects in the following slides. So the framework for the AED will assist the Yuramboi Council with the delivery of Yuramboi strategy, which is a strategy to inform and guide wealth generating investment for Aboriginal Victorians into the future. In fact, Yima Yuramboi means invest in tomorrow. So that's quite apt in relation to some of the work we're doing and some of the work that they're doing as well. It's in the local Werong language. So the strategy sets a high bar in relation to bringing all Aboriginal employment and businesses initiatives together under a single framework to support wealth creation and achieve economic parity within a generation. So that's a fairly big ask. They've set the bar quite high there to achieve that. And in these areas, we're conducting, obviously, conducting the work for the framework that will assist in informing some of those aspects in relation to the council. So the council is chaired by the Secretary, Department of Jobs, Skills and Industry and Regions, and also the chair of the Koori Caucus as well. So there's input as well from community as well as from the government. So some of the additional activities there in relation to the framework to support DJ SIR will be a commitment to improving shared access to data and information at a regional level as per the national agreement closing the gap in the Victorian Aboriginal Affairs framework. So that's important in terms of sharing that data with various government organisations. It'll also assist in forming the Uric Justice Commission's mandate to consider Indigenous data sovereignty practices under the Commission's letters patent. And then the 2021-22 state's budget's funding commitments to self-determination or self-determined research, I should say. Also, the Victorian Audit General's Office planned examination and assessment in 2025 as well on the implementation of Indigenous data sovereignty practices across all Victorian governments. So this will have quite a broad reach across all government departments as well, by way of sort of developing frameworks for their particular areas as well. So by way of the consultations that were delivered in a series of sector-focused roundtables, some of them were community-focused and some of them were actually sector-focused as well for organisations to attend. Remembering those sectors also were in tourism, sport, economy, arts and culture, also Aboriginal employment and Aboriginal businesses. So they're all of the areas really that DJ SIR sort of cover under their umbrella of responsibilities, government responsibilities. So importantly, the sector and community input was sought so that DJ SIR's framework is able to reflect the needs and aspirations of Victorian First Peoples in relation to data governance, data sovereignty as well. After the sector and community-focused workshops, we then conducted validation sessions where we invited all participants of the workshops to provide feedback with various sessions which reflected the respective workshops. So this was to ensure participants were able to further discuss and analyse information which was collected and had a chance to correct or clarify some of that information as well in our findings. Unfortunately, the numbers weren't as high as we expected or would like to expect. So a number of the workshops were consolidated into regional workshops that were set to be conducted face to face, where we brought those in line with MS through MS team consultations. But one of the workshops was conducted in Melbourne, and that was well attended by about 12 to 16 people, I believe. But otherwise, Generally, our workshops were about, say, 6 to 8 at the most, I believe. So the workshops were facilitated by myself and Levi Murray, and we followed a structure of employing a yarning methodology, which hopefully some of you are familiar with, and that was in relation to a Bero board that was interactive, and participants would then work in parallel with us, where we would ask them a bunch of questions around how their organisation sort of works, and some of the nuances within their organisation, some of the concerns that they have, um, and then they were kind of then we kind of drew some information and some data on that. And some of those practice areas were the data utilizations, enablers and barriers of good governance within their organisation, whether their organisation had a clear and well-defined governance framework, and some key considerations as well for a good Indigenous data sovereignty framework, which we got some great input from. So I think I covered this area, some of the areas that we've spoke about: tourism, sport, arts, employment, businesses, etc. The low registration numbers, but I think we had a total of at least 30 participants there across Victoria, which assisted us in gathering that information. But I think we also reached a good saturation point as well in terms of the answers to the questions that we asked, which then kind of informed our analysis. The regional centres that we wanted to travel to, but we didn't end up travelling to, are Portland, Horsham, Mildura, Bendigo, Shepparton, Lakes Entrance, as well as having a meeting at Koori Heritage Trust, or a workshop at the Koori Heritage Trust here in Melbourne. So there were 3 consolidated regional workshops, and like I said, the Melbourne one was face-to-face. So in terms of our consultations, the way we structured it was, we obviously just had an introduction, but then Levi Murray spoke a little bit from the Indigenous Data Network about Indigenous data governance and strategy, and spoke from an international and Australian perspective, defining data, understanding data governance, sovereignty, why it is essential for First Peoples across Australia to have knowledge and have a good governance system as well in relation to data governance. Particularly, Levi spoke about what Indigenous data governance is, why Indigenous data governance is so important, what the CARE principles are, standing for collective benefit, authority to control, responsibility, and ethics. I'm sure many of you know that, as well as the FAIR principles, stands for the findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable parts of data as well. Also spoke about what Indigenous data sovereignty is, mentioned the international norm of the UNDRIP, or United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, and spoke about Article 31 as well, which I hope you all are familiar with as well, which states that Indigenous people generally have the right to control, own, and use data as they think fit. And there was also a discussion around the IATSIS code, Indigenous knowledge and data governance as well, and how that applies, some of those aspects. A bit slow and jumping ahead. So then I spoke a little bit about the legal considerations and ICIP. Some of my discussions were around privacy, confidentiality, contract management and disclosure policy. So Victorian government has some of those. So obviously this data sovereignty framework will help inform those aspects. Freedom of information legislation, IP regimes, trademarks, patents, designs, etc. All of those acts that apply to IP regimes, Victorian Aboriginal cultural heritage aspects, and Indigenous cultural and intellectual property as well. And we know that, importantly, that the government has put out a paper, the Commonwealth Government has put out a paper, Revive Australia's Cultural Policy for the Next 5 Years document, and that has a commitment from the government to apply a sui generis scheme to Indigenous cultural and intellectual property. So watch this space. There has been some consultations here in Melbourne just recently. They're currently having more consultations in New South Wales, and then next week, I believe, some more consultations in Brisbane, or Queensland at least. So these are some of the valuable insights across the following areas that we've drawn information from in relation to our consultations. We got to speak about data types and collection practices, levels of data literacy with people, data interactions and their use, data management practices, data perspective and utilization, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander data collection, how that's done, data and funding, barriers to good data governance, enablers for good data governance, and considerations for data governance frameworks. So, like I said, we're midway through the process. So, where the process will be finished and a framework will be hopefully completed by the end of May. So we're working through still some of the analysis from the consultations. We can share a little bit with you now, but at this preliminary stage, we'd like to share the analysis from the following areas, such as barriers to good data governance, which was drawn from consultations, enablers for good data governance, and considerations for good data governance frameworks. So in relation to those key findings, we found that members were concerned about, in relation to barriers to good data governance, members were concerned about limited data literacy, limited understanding of data governance, limited resources, staffing and technology, challenges coordinating data from multiple agencies, privacy and confidentiality limitations, dependence on external reporting, distrust of data sources, lack of government action, lack of clear policies, and lack of accountability and transparency. So from those aspects, you can see there's still a lot of work to do. There are the concerns of the members that we've consulted with. So hopefully, once again, this framework will address those issues. In terms of enablers for good governance, good data governance, we drew information stemming around establishing clear data governance frameworks, developing data literacy, stakeholder engagement, community ownership, capacity building, shared decision making, First Nations led applications, adopting principles of Indigenous data sovereignty, ongoing resourcing, transparency, maintaining privacy and confidentiality, ensuring the quality and trustworthiness of the data. So there's some important aspects as well that we drew from our consultations. And in relation to considerations for data governance frameworks, members were concerned about stakeholder engagement, community consultations, transparency again, co-design and consistency, formalising definitions for data governance, giving ownership of data to Aboriginal people, rights to access one's records, better management practices for data access, ensuring safety and privacy, ongoing infrastructure funding, commitment to governance reform, engaging with communities to understand the relevance of data. So there, you can see that we covered quite a lot of different topics within those umbrella of topics there, consideration for data governance frameworks in this case, that'll inform our framework going forward. Obviously, from now, we'll be looking at current frameworks in place. We'll be working with other organisations as well to and doing further research to analyse all that data and putting that all together. And the final analysis will inform the drafting of the framework, obviously, that were put together with IDN and COIA collaboration. We'll draft the in-depth analysis of legal considerations as well that will go with that. Obviously, the area of data governance really touches on so many different areas, including legislation, common law. So it's a bit of a minefield, but obviously we need to put something in place at least to kind of quell the concerns of community and organisations as well in the way they use data. So once again, we'd like to acknowledge and appreciate the support of Levi Murray as well and the Indigenous Data Network in sharing their knowledge of Indigenous data governance and sovereignty and contributing to this project. And that's all. If anyone has any kind of questions or sort of wants further information in relation to this stuff, obviously we're governed by the work that we do with DJ Sir, and we're contracted to do that work. But if we can share some information, we're happy to do that. This is the email address if you'd like to do that. Thank you.